let's bust some myths today, shall we? There are so many myths about reading and early literacy online, and you might see these myths and think that they're true. You might be reading this information, maybe from an influencer or from a blog, and you think that that is true and that you shouldn't teach your child to read early. So today, I want to share with you 4 of the common myths that I've seen online. I have gotten pushback on my own posts when I share information about teaching your child to read early. And I wanted to share these myths with you and tell you what the truth is so that you can make the best decision for you and your family. And I will start by saying, like I always say, you don't have to teach your child to read early. But if you do want to teach your child to read early, let's have all the facts and information and let's do it correctly. So that's what we're going to talk about today. In case you're new here, my name is Erin. I'm from littleslovelearning.com. I'm a former classroom teacher, and now I call myself a parent reading coach. I'm not really sure what to call myself, but I help parents teach their kids to read correctly and effectively based on the science of reading. I do this through my blog, through my YouTube channel, through my podcast, through my social media channels, through my email list. I am always sharing information about early literacy and how to properly teach kids how to read. And the reason that I do this is because there is so much misinformation out there that I want to make sure I combat that so parents have all of the information before they make choices for their children, because these choices are going to impact their kids for the rest of their lives. What we do now when our kids are 3, 4, 5, 6 years old will absolutely have an impact when they are 36 or 46 or 56. So we want to make sure that we have all the information now so we can make the best decisions for our family. So let's dive into these myths. The first myth, the myth that I see most common online, is reading is natural. Kids learn how to read when they're ready, so we don't need to rush them. We'll just go at their own pace and they will eventually catch up. So if your child is not interested in reading or they're not reading, don't worry about it. It's natural. They'll figure it out. That is absolutely 100% without a doubt false. Reading is not natural. When we are not born with the neural pathways in our brain to read. We are born with the neural pathways to learn speech. So speaking is very natural for us. That's the way our human brain is wired. But whenever they decided, you know what, we have this speech, but now we want to write it down. We're going to put it to letters, and those letters are going to go together to make words, and those words are going to be written down so people can read and write. That was not natural. That's a human invention. We came up with that, which is really cool that we came up with that. But it's not natural. Our brains are not born with the neural connections to read or to write. If you are waiting for your child to figure this out on their own, or you're waiting to teach them because you think they're going to show you when they're ready, or they're just going to pick it up eventually, so it's no big deal, that is not true. Your child is not going to just pick it up eventually. They need to be explicitly taught this language about how speech gets written down, about how speech sounds are spelled with letters, how those go together, what the phonics rules are. They need all of that instruction, because what we're doing is we're creating those neural pathways in their brain. We are creating something that is not there. That is so cool. When we think about neuroplasticity and we think about how we can change our brains, that just blows my mind. But reading is one of those areas. Our brain is not wired to learn how to read. So we need that explicit instruction to change our brains so that we are able to learn how to read. So if you are waiting because you think your child is going to just naturally pick it up because reading is natural, if I just read to them, they're going to figure this out. If I just give them time, they're going to discover this on their own. I am here to tell you that no, they will not. Reading needs to be taught. They need to be trained in order to learn how to read, in order to form those new neural connections in their brains, and in order to be successful. So please don't wait. Please don't think it's natural, because it is not. The second biggest myth I see online when it comes to reading, and especially with our little ones, is that reading is not appropriate for our little kids. I understand where this is coming from, and I understand that people are worried that we're pushing our kids to read too early. But we have to understand that reading doesn't happen overnight. We don't flip a switch and our child goes from being a non-reader to a reader. That's not how it works. Reading involves so many skills that it's going to take a long time to build and develop those skills. That's why I like to start early, because then we have this long runway. We have this long time where a child can be working on these early literacy skills and they're not rushed or pressured to learn how to read. So if you're worried that working with your child on their early literacy skills is not appropriate, I want you to evaluate, well, what are you doing with them? Because sure, sitting down with a worksheet or drilling flashcards is not going to be appropriate for a 3 or 4-year-old. But when you do it in a playful, joyful way, and you're teaching them their letters and sounds by going on a scavenger hunt, by playing I Spy Outside, by putting the alphabet letters in a sensory bin, and when they pull one out, they tell you the sound, that is 100% developmentally appropriate. That is great. You are teaching them through play. You are teaching them this new skill. They don't even realize they're learning because they're just playing. They're doing what they do best. Kids should absolutely be playing because that is the best thing for them to do. So I want you to really evaluate that message. Reading is not developmentally appropriate. I am not asking a 3-year-old to read the Odyssey. I think it's very different if a 3 or 4-year-old is reading the word stop or cat or dog, as opposed to pushing them and I'm expecting them to read chapter books or hard literature books. That's not what we're saying. That's why I think this idea that kids cannot read early, what reading are you talking about? Are you talking about kids being able to play with sounds, which is what we call phonological phonemic awareness, because that's 100% important before they learn how to read and before they go to kindergarten? Are you talking about learning letters and sounds? Because that's 100% important for them to do as well. If they can read simple words, I don't see how that's developmentally inappropriate. It doesn't make sense to me why we're holding kids back until they hit a certain age. But once they hit that age, then watch out, because then we're going to expect them to learn so much in 1 year of school. That doesn't make sense. So if we're talking about developmentally appropriateness when it comes to reading, let's look at our practices. How are we teaching them? How are we practicing with them? What are we incorporating? Are we doing it in a joyful way that's full of play and we're engaging them? That's a totally different conversation. So just keep that in mind if you see that myth floating around the internet. I also shared a recent video about our kids who are gifted and our kids who have really fast processing speeds, and they're able to put the patterns together so much more quickly that they are ready to read early and they are readers early. So you're telling me that it's not developmentally appropriate for those kids to read, but their brains are different. Their brains work differently. They're neurodivergent. So again, keep that in your mind too, because every child is different and you know your child best. Blanket statements never work. I've never seen one blanket statement work because there's always exceptions. There are always kids who are on different ends of the spectrum that need different things. So we have to keep that in mind when we see these myths. The third myth I see a lot going around the internet is that childhood is for play. We want our kids' childhoods to be magical and all about play and digging in the dirt and going on walks outside, and that incorporating reading is just not what we want. It's not going to give them a magical childhood, I guess is the message. So to that, I say, why does it have to be one or the other? It goes back to that idea of developmental appropriateness. People say kids should be playing. They shouldn't be learning how to read. Why can't we do both? Why can't we have our kids play while they're learning how to read? Why can't we make sure that we're incorporating both? Sometimes they're playing and we're incorporating letters and sounds, and sometimes they're playing and they're not learning letters and sounds. They don't have to always be playing to learn how to read. But why can't we do both? A child can go on a walk, go on a nature walk, get muddy in the dirt, play outside, enjoy the sunshine, go swimming, play in a splash pad. I don't know, all the magical things that are part of this childhood. But they can also spend 10 minutes working on letters and sounds. They could also spend 10 minutes playing phonological awareness games. It doesn't take away from their childhood. That's my message for you. I see this all the time. I've gotten pushback on this myself, that childhood is for play and that we shouldn't be incorporating learning into our kids' childhood. I 100% disagree with that, because play is learning. They can learn through play. It doesn't need to be one or the other. It's a false dichotomy. We're not saying if you teach your child to read, then they cannot play. If you teach your child to read, they are not going to have a magical childhood. That doesn't make sense. They can have both. We're incorporating both. This channel is all about and. It's not an either or situation. We play outside in the dirt and we practice letter sounds. We go swimming and have this magical childhood and we learn how to read. We can do both. And the fourth myth I see a lot online. I've seen this a few times in comments where people will say there are more important things than reading. And they're talking again about childhood, saying that it's more important for our kids to play and to have these magical experiences than to read. There are more important things than reading. If we just take a step back for 1 second and we evaluate that statement, what could be more important than reading for our children on their journey? They need to learn how to read for every aspect of life, not only for school success and academic success, but for success as an adult, for success in life. They need to read when they are signing the lease on their first apartment. They need to read when they are filling out a job application. They need to read if they're a multi-million-dollar making athlete and they have to make sure that they know their contract. So it doesn't matter what your child is going to grow up and do with their life. They absolutely need to know how to read. So the idea that there are more important things than reading does not make sense to me. It does not compute in my brain. Nothing is more important than reading. Reading is a life skill. Reading is not a school subject. It's not an academic skill. And I think that's where it gets twisted. And I wish we could somehow change that, because teaching our children how to read versus making sure they get a good grade in school, and that's why we're teaching them how to read, they're two totally different things. I am not here advocating that you teach your child how to read so that they can be at the top of their class and get straight A's. I'm advocating that you teach your child to read so they can be successful in life, so that they can have the confidence that, yes, I do know how to read these simple words, and they become more complex. And then they're reading more complex chapter books and literature and nonfiction books and science books. I want them to be successful, whatever field they choose, whatever job they choose, whatever they want to do with their life, they are going to need to know how to read. So there is nothing more important than teaching your child to read. It is a life skill, and it is something you can work on starting when they're young. Not to say that you need to push them so hard and so fast, but that you have that long runway that you can teach them, make it joyful, make it playful, still give them a magical childhood. In fact, I would argue that it's more magical when they can read on their own. They're going to have the most amazing experiences when you unlock that world of literacy for them. So there you go. Those are 4 myths that I see very commonly spread online. I would love to know your opinion on these myths. Have you heard them before? Did you believe them before? Do you still believe them? Maybe you disagree with me, and that is okay. You can have a different opinion than I do, because we all get to make the best choice for our own children. I did for my kids what I thought was best, what worked for us. I taught them both how to read before they went to kindergarten, which I do not regret for 1 second. It was the best choice I could have made for them. They are both thriving in school, thriving in life. They love to read. It was what worked best for our family and for my kids. But you get to pick for your own kids. And maybe it's different for each of your kids because your kids are different. You get to choose. And that's my message for you today. All of these myths that I shared, they're all just blanket statements. And nothing that I say on this channel, I want to be a blanket statement. I want it to be individualized for you and for your child. So whatever you choose to do, I am here to support you. If you would like support, I want to make sure that you have all the facts and information to make the best decision for your family. If you do want to teach your child to read at home, I want to support you, and I have a freebie that does just that. If you click the link down below, you can access this freebie. It's about the 5 steps for reading success. So you can read through that information and see, how do I start teaching my child how to read? What are those 5 steps? And if your child is already learning how to read, or maybe they're struggling, look at that freebie and see where maybe the holes are. Where are they struggling? How can you help patch those holes and make sure that you fill them in before your child continues on their reading journey? So wherever your child is on their journey, this freebie will be helpful to you. And I want you as the parent to feel empowered and confident knowing that you know how to teach reading. You know your child best. You know when the best time is to start. And just remember, you can do it through play. You can do it in an engaging way that is not taking away from their magical childhood. I promise it will still be magical for them, and you can teach them how to read. If you have questions about this or anything else I share on my channel, please comment down below. You can also find me over on my website, littleslovelearning.com, or please reach out on social media. I am active on Facebook and Instagram at Littles Love Learning Blog. I would love your opinion. Send me a message, or you can comment down below and tell me your opinion. Do you agree with this video? Do you disagree? Have you heard these myths? Have you not? Any information that you want to share with me, I would love to hear it. I love interacting with you and supporting parents teaching their kids to read at home. Until next time, happy learning. Bye.